control the clinch. Really kind of just be aggressive. Just go out and heavy shots. It was the last round where she had a little bit of difficulty. Goodwin actually took her back, and Chelsea was actually fighting off a rear naked choke before until the bell rang. So Goodwin actually took the last round, but Ray was so far ahead in the first two rounds that she ended up taking a unanimous decision. This is her first amateur win. So congratulations to Chelsea, and we'll be seeing more of her on the Tough Enough roster, I believe, in the coming months. And this brings us to today. UFC Prague in the Czech Republic. Liz Carmouche defeated Lucie Polidova by unanimous decision. From what I hear, I didn't get the chance to watch the fight, but it was not a... let's just say it wasn't a Fight of the Year candidate by any stretch of the imagination. By the looks of it, Liz was really kind of grappling and just controlling the situation and kind of grinding out a unanimous decision that way. Jillian Robinson defeated Veronica Mercado by rear naked choke round one. Currently tied for most flyweight finishes with 3. It'll be interesting to see what kind of goes on in the strawweight division right now with her. Things are still kind of getting there. They're starting to kind of sort things out, as it were. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about that in a little bit, about what's going on with the strawweight title and all that as well. But in where some of the contenders are and all that as well. So, but it'll be interesting to see if Jillian gets a top 10 opponent this next time around. There are quite a few people that are probably going to be itching for fights. So we'll see what goes on there. Bellator in Ireland. We had 2 really important featherweight fights in there as well. Hometown girl Leah McCourt defeated Hatiste Ozert by TKO round 1. She had actually, Leah in a post-fight interview said that she actually came into the fight with an injury, a shoulder injury, partially torn, shoulder muscle, and she actually wanted to have this fight in Ireland, so she kind of bared and gritted through it. So she ended up getting the TKO round 1. For her hometown crowd, that was really great as well. The important fight, though, on that, not to say that Leah isn't important, but Olga Rubin, still undefeated, defeats Ione Farizan by unanimous decision. Olga, like I said, undefeated, more than likely is going to be the next contender for Julia Budd. They've been trying to build a next contender for Julia Budd. Budd wants to fight over and rise into face Gabby Garcia while they're waiting in the interim, but we'll kind of see what happens there. Gabby and Bud have both agreed that they would love to fight each other in Ryzen, but I have no clue if Bellator is going to let that happen. But Olga Rubin's going to be probably, I'd be 90% sure that Rubin's going to be the next challenger for the featherweight championship, barring Cyborg gets assigned to Bellator anytime soon. So it's really great to see Bellator is really kind of developing their 145 division. They have a pretty solid 6 or 7 or 8 women in that roster that are going through that situation. So they have more of a division in terms of featherweight than the UFC does, by a long shot. So it'll be interesting to kind of see where kind of everything kind of goes in terms of that. I can tell you that I think we're discussing this a little bit. In terms, I was discussing this on Twitter about the featherweight division. The thing is with the featherweight division is the fact that first of all, there's a huge gap in between some of these gals that are right now in the amateur divisions, fighting at maybe 155, 145, or just starting up as pro at 145 or 155. There's so much of a gap that they can't build them up fast enough. And that's just something that happens to divisions off and on and off and on. The bantamweight division, for example, had that problem for a little while. It was just the fact that some women, it'll go into a question that I was asked by by one of my Twitter followers, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the thing is that you just have, and this is something I've told everybody, you just got to give it time. Featherweight is just, a situation where there is a huge gap on there as well. There are larger, I won't say larger, but bigger gals that are wanting to get into MMA, but it's just taking some time for them to develop on the amateur circuit and really kind of build their records up in the pros to make it to that point where you could face a gal like a Julia Budd or a Chris Cyborg or somebody in that kind of thing. So just be aware for those people that are complaining about it and don't think that it's a worthy division. I just tell you that you just need to give it time. That's all you need to do. You need to give it time. There's enough talent in the amateur division right now that can kind of push it in there. On the flip side of that, we're getting a lot of people that are we're a part of that tough cast that are dropping down to 145. Had a very interesting conversation with online with Pani Kianzad about it, and she said that she would be willing to stay at 145 if given the option to fight Megan Anderson, and Megan said she would be more than willing to be able to fight her. So we'll see kind of what happens with that. I mean, if Panny's willing to face Megan, I think it would be an excellent fight between the two of them. So, but the UFC never really, usually takes fighters' advice, which kind of sucks sometimes. But Panny said that she'd do both 135 and 145. So we'll kind of see what goes on there as well. But we'll go more into that in just a second. Let me get down to the next part of the news here. So you guys are kind of, you guys are caught up on a lot of the results that happened, and you guys can go to wombatsports.com and you guys can check out results as they come in. I usually update results. Usually the pro results are Monday, but I'll usually go through and wait on the amateurs until Tuesday or Wednesday. It's just because the website, Tapology, what I usually use, don't usually have a lot of the results done until like Tuesday. It's just because the promoters kind of drag their feet sometimes and doesn't get the results in, or they have to research it and all that as well. So it usually takes a couple days for the site to update. So that's why I have to update my stuff a little bit later. So just note that I'll usually have pro results up on Mondays, and then our amateur stuff will either be Tuesday or Wednesday. So it just happens to be that way. I should mention, I think, what did they have the other day? Oh, yeah. There was one fight that I told you on the last podcast that you guys should look out for. It was a fight in Russia. It ended up getting canceled. So it was a good flyweight fight in Russia, but that fight got canceled. So I'm hoping it's getting rescheduled for another card. But when I looked at the event, they didn't have the fight on there, so it was canceled for some odd reason, and we'll figure it out as well. So, trying to think, it was an amateur fight, I think, that I was telling you guys about, but it totally slipped my mind what it was. I don't have it on my list, so we'll have to skip it for this time around, and we'll kind of figure that one out later. Okay, so here we go. After all the results are in and all that as well, there was a lot of stuff that came over this past week in terms of fight announcements. We got a slew of them this past week. It's been crazy. The UFC decided to release a bunch of fight announcements as well. Starting off with, let's start off with April the 27th in Sunrise, Florida, Carla Esparza versus Livia Souza. The battle of two former Invicta champions. That's going to be a very interesting fight. I think I love the booking there and the parody of that storyline and all that as well. It'll be interesting to see how Livia kind of compares to the more veteran Carla Esparza. I'm interested to see how that goes. It'll be an interesting fight. The aforementioned Jodie Esquibel versus Jessica Penne fight is also on that card, so it's been pushed to April 27th in Sunrise, Florida. I believe it's going to be on ESPN Plus, so it won't be a pay-per-view card. It will be on ESPN Plus, I believe. Either that or ESPN proper, but I don't know. I'm assuming it's ESPN Plus. So I don't have that information in front of me. Anyway, so that brings us to UFC 237 in Brazil on May the 11th. They have loaded it up with 1, 2, 3, 4 fights. The co-main event of the evening, or at least the feature, I think it's the co-main, Rose versus Andrade for the strawweight championship. But added this week, Jessica Rose Clark, Jessie Jess is facing Talita Bernardo. Irene Aldana is facing Betch Correia. And 2 newcomers, Wu Ye Yan versus Luana Carolina, has been all on that. So there's 4 fights going on May 11th in Rio on pay-per-view. A couple of them is going to be probably on ESPN's, proper, ESPN television for the prelims. I'm assuming that's going to be probably the Jessie Jess versus Bernardo fight and the Aldana versus Correia fight. I won't be surprised if the Wu Ye Yan versus Luana Caroline fight ends up being in the ESPN Plus prelims or the UFC Fight Pass prelims. I think it's UFC Fight Pass prelims. I was told that the UFC Fight Pass will have the prelims if it's not an ESPN card. So I guess that's the rule. It gets confusing. I don't know why, but anyway. So anyway, 4 fights on UFC 237, May 11th in Rio. So just guys let you know as well. Sarah Moras is facing Leah Letson in Ottawa, May 4th, and that is a bantamweight fight. So that goes back to the fact that a lot of these tough initiates are dropping down to bantamweight. So it makes absolutely no sense at all. Our last, I think it was the one before when I was talking with our good friend Serena De Jesus. So we talked a little bit about Roxy versus Antonina. That is now official, May 20th in Russia. Again, a very interesting flyweight fight. It'll be interesting to see where Antonina is going to fight, because I guess from what I'm told, Antonina and Valentina would be more than happy to fight each other for a UFC championship, which is kind of weird for 2 sisters to be able to do that. But I think they've done that in Muay Thai before, so it'll be interesting. But obviously, Antonina is going to be a little bit more heavier striker than Roxy's usually used to, but it'll be interesting to see how they kind of prep for that. And I know Roxy, if I remember correctly, Roxy and Valentina have trained before, but we'll have to take a look at that as well. But interesting fight in Russia. No other female fights so far on that Russian card, but we'll see kind of what happens down the line. Final UFC fight news that was brought down. Paige Van Zandt's going to make her return versus Polyana Bofiello April the 13th. So she'll be fighting on April 13th. I believe that's an ESPN card again. So. But don't quote me on that. I don't have the information for some odd reason right in front of me. So I'm kind of going through all this stuff. There's a lot of stuff here. Okay, let's get some other news. Amanda Nunes had told Global that she doesn't feel there's enough time to prepare for a matchup against Holly in Brazil. So, but the thing is that she's saying she's hoping to return in November or December. Then face Home or Cyborg, and then potentially retire. I think they'd want her. They would want Nunes in before at least 2 more fights this year. It's ridiculous for her to go that long until just November, December to defend her title, especially if she's holding up the division. So it'll be interesting to see where that ends up happening. I am assuming my guess is that Amanda fights in July. It should be enough time for her to get prepped and ready by July to go for the International Fight Week card. It just makes much more sense for her to fight there. I don't think they'll give her that opportunity to wait that